Welcome back to the Cross Discussion. Great to have you guys joining us again online, however you're joining from. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. It's awesome to have you guys tuning in again. I'm your host, Cody. You've seen me in a couple of past episodes. I'm joined by Lexi and Jaden, who you have seen before as well. Great to have you guys hosting with me, I should say. We do have a guest this episode, which is great. We've got Tracey. Welcome on, Tracey. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, today we're going to be discussing living counterculturally, which is something that ties in a bit with our purpose and identity as well, which is kind of what this podcast is about, essentially. So, Tracey will be helping us explore the topic of counterculture and living that way and that sort of thing. So, it'll be cool. Good to have you
Thank you.
on the podcast. It'd be awesome to kind of hear insight on what you've got to say about that sort of thing. First off, we do usually have an icebreaker activity. So would you rather little segment here?
Get keen.
Yeah, get keen for that one.
That's it.
We're going to rapid fire a couple of questions, would you rather questions for you, and we're just going to get your answers really, really quickly, all right? So
We're going to scrutinise your answers heavily. That's what we're going to do.
Yes, we always like to pause after. And
No
just go,
judgment this time.
No sarcasm.
Alrighty, so we'll start off. Time starts now, I guess. We don't have a clock, but would you rather never have air conditioning or never have deodorant?
Never have air conditioning.
Would you?
Really?
Oh, damn.
Really?
Jaden.
Oh, no, can you imagine being at school when we were at school, right? And it's just, there's no air conditioning.
Imagine having no deodorant. Do you know how much you would
I do it
smell?
every day.
That would be pretty.
Jaden, they're not going to like you at the
I know.
moment.
Anyway, so.
Would you rather have no eyelashes or no eyebrows?
No eyebrows.
No eyebrows, there we go.
Yeah, eyelashes protect the eyes. I reckon I could draw my eyebrows on.
Fair
Yeah, I'd
enough.
get the skills. I'd practice.
There you go.
We could get them
Yeah.
like tattooed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's not even a problem, really.
Would you rather be a chicken or a cow for a day?
I'd have to be a cow. Yeah, I'd have to be a cow all the
quick
way,
answer.
I reckon.
Quick answer.
I have chickens. I think their existence is just a little bit boring. I think I'd love to be a cow
Hope
and
the chickens
just
aren't watching.
be
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I'm
in a
hoping there are no
huge
chickens
field.
tuning in.
Yeah, my chickens are very loved.
Okay.
They've got a really lovely
Good.
chook
Great,
house.
great
Yeah.
you cleared that up.
I reckon, yeah, I love
Awesome.
them. But I think a cow would be I think that'd be quite exciting. Yeah.
There you
I
go. Would you rather be extremely allergic to your favourite food or have to eat your least favourite food every day?
Or I'd probably be allergic to my most favorite food because I think I'm pretty easy. I'd find a substitute favorite.
What
food.
is your least favourite food and your favourite food?
Oxtail? Has anyone ever eaten that in this country?
That's so like obscure, no?
I know, right? Oxtail and coriander. Oxtail's a very South African dish,
Yeah.
and you grow up eating that like a stew, and it's quite sticky. And then coriander just tastes like soap.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, I've
I
tried
love
to eat it, but it's a thing.
coriander's-
Some
I do
people,
get where you get soap from, though.
Yeah.
From like
Yeah.
the flavour.
coriander just gives me that. It's not my fave. So I
What is your favourite though?
mushroom risotto.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all about flavors and textures. So I think I'd be pretty sweet choosing
Yeah.
a different one. I could go with that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Would you rather be able to communicate with animals or only be able to communicate with people from another country?
Oh, I'd love to be able to communicate with animals. I think that'd just be quite a neat trick.
The chickens might be a bit
You could tell
upset
your
about
chickens that you
Yeah.
love them.
They might be a bit upset about that.
No, I'd affirm them in chicken language.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd speak
There
in
you go.
human
That's
language
fair.
about them.
Yeah, they wouldn't understand
Yeah,
what you're
quite.
saying on the podcast.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Yeah, fair enough. Would you rather only eat ice cream or only eat broccoli for the rest of your life?
Oh, broccoli.
Why?
So interesting. We were writing that and we were like, oh, they're just going to say ice cream. But why broccoli? Why?
That
No,
actually
ice
caught me
cream's
by
not my
surprise.
thing. I don't have like a penchant for any sort of ice cream.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I really
Okay.
do like broccoli.
It's probably better
In
for
quiche,
you. Yeah, in quiche.
omelets.
Does go in a lot of things.
You can eat it in a lot of things.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
if I had to choose that, it'd probably be broccoli.
There you go. Well, that did catch me by surprise because I'm sure you guys would have picked ice cream
I
as
aim
well,
to
so.
please.
Probably.
Probably flavour-wise, but I feel like that would be...
It's a good choice. I'm
Lexi,
convinced.
that's enough from you. There's no need for
Lex.
elaboration. Your answer was ice cream, and that's it.
Yeah.
Would you rather control animals or see the future?
I would. That's a tough one. I'd probably have to go with see the future. See the future. I like
So-
property investments, so I'd like to see
Okay.
that my investments were worthwhile.
There you go. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Controlled your chickens more easily.
Yes.
We're going back to the chickens all.
You could have.
Become the thief.
Yeah.
You could have told them
We should
that
call
what you
this
said on the
the chicken.
podcast and then controlled their feelings to
True.
be like, oh,
and then
that's
like
all right.
be more exciting than I would have chosen you.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. We always tie back to this one question. We always ask this question. This one
Okay.
is the fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck question. So,
A horse-sized duck.
horse-sized duck?
Yeah, horse-sized duck. I think they've only got like wings that aren't really that accurate to do any sort of like ninja moves and stuff.
The beak.
But you just
They've
get
got
underneath
big
them and you
Ducks,
fight
ducks are
them.
scary.
I would be able to get past that, I
Okay.
reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could get out of their way.
But like the horses, they have hoofs and they're like they're
Yeah, but
muscly.
they're-
and there's
they're
tiny
tiny.
hundreds of
Yeah,
them.
but they're gonna be
You
like
said 100.
hundreds. They could.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They could
but
do
they're
damage.
tiny. You just kick them.
Guys, I feel like this is a question where
Just
we can't,
one
we can't convince
waddle.
each other.
Yeah,
Let's just go our separate ways. The cross discussion is over.
No, it's not. Still
It's not.
going.
It's still going. Hasn't really
We've got
started.
another, 30 minutes?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Jaden, so obviously we've heard that you've known Tracey for a while.
Yes.
Do you have any questions in particular that you want to ask her?
Fun fact for a question: what's your last name, Tracey?
Adams.
I love the last name. My last name
I know
is
you
also
do.
Adams. I know it's a really cool last name, but we're not related. Fun
What?
fact.
That's
I know.
surprising.
So
Yeah.
surprisingly enough,
crazy.
my dad works in the same office as Tracey.
Yeah.
So and they're teachers. So when I came up to year 7, I remember everyone just going, "Oh, that must be your mum," and it was like the happy family. But Tracey is not my mum.
Yeah.
As lovely as she is. But yeah, love the last name. Bit of a fun fact there. We go on Adams family camping trips every now and again,
We
but it's
do.
like different Adams families that are all just connected.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
pretty cool last name. If you're in Adams, let us know in the comments, and
You could join us on the next
yeah,
holiday.
you can join us on the holiday.
Yeah.
Good reward right there.
Fraser Island.
Cool.
Hashtag 2024.
Yeah. But
Christmas.
seriously, having you as a family friend, Tracey, you're one of probably the most joyful people I know, and I mean that in a really
No.
encouraging way. Like you reflect the joy of the Lord. And so yeah, going along with that, just 2 questions for you. What do you reckon is one of the funniest things that have happened in your life, and also like one of the biggest things? Love to hear.
I would probably think one of the. Okay, so something that is a little bit funny. I went on a skiing trip with one of my schools in the UK. So I was teaching. We went on a ski trip up to Italy, Litwil, and I happened to actually. The non-funny part was tore my ACL and meniscus in a ski accident.
Definitely not funny.
Ski slope, they brought me all the way down, ski
Yeah.
rescue, etc. I flew back to the UK from Geneva on a plane by myself, etc. Got back
Very
to
funny story
the
so
UK. But then I got a job interview at a school I'd been wanting to work at for a really long time. And
Yeah.
they said to me that I had to come and teach and do a practical in a science class. And I was like, bring it on. And I said, I just need to let you know that I have a full leg brace and my leg's held at a certain degree.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm on crutches. So I need to ask you in advance if I can please have a lab tech help me, assist me in the class. And they were all good with that. And it actually ended up being one of the best lessons I've ever taught.
Yeah, right.
And I couldn't move. I couldn't use my hands for anything.
Yeah.
And I taught rates of reaction and the class loved it and I got the job.
Great.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Good
was
came
so
from something that you wouldn't
Very
have thought
good
there.
came from
Yeah.
something that was, that's the only thing I've ever broken in my life. And it was turned for good. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I guess that's a big thing as well. So
Yeah, that is a big thing.
cool.
Yep.
So you answered both questions in one, I guess,
In
with that
one.
one.
In one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
there you go.
Yeah.
Look at that. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Awesome. So Tracey, what culture did you experience when you were growing up? Obviously not coming from Australia, coming from somewhere different. What was the culture like there?
I grew up very different to what I think the people around me that I associate with now, the way that they grew up. I grew up in South Africa where I lived until I graduated from high school, moved over to the UK, and I originally went as a nanny, lived over there for 16 years, and then we moved as a family over to Australia in 2016, so we've been here for almost 8 years. Growing up in South Africa, we lived in a really small town. One of the things that I distinctly remember as a child is growing up in a religion that didn't celebrate Christmas, birthdays, Easter, even competitions, sporting competitions, not being able to participate in sporting competitions, not racing against other people, being in a competitive environment, etc., was very different for me. I things that I remember at school, if we said the Lord's Prayer or even sang the national anthem at school, there were a group of about 6 or 7 of us from the same religion that had to stand up in assembly and actually leave, which for me was mortifying, but I obeyed the expectations of me by my parents to do that, and the group of students that I was with that shared the same religion.
And the Lord's Prayer is just like a prayer in the Bible type thing, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And we were not permitted to say that in the religion.
Yeah.
And leaving that, we'd stand outside of assembly, and then when it came to a close or it came to a part where we could participate again, we'd have to come back in and make our way back into assembly. And I always felt like eyes were on me, but I never resonated with that religion. And it felt like I needed to be countercultural to that, but not countercultural what felt like in a good way.
Yeah,
Not
it was
the
like
way.
in a bad sense.
Kind of
It was
excluded
like I
from
was-
everyone
yeah.
else, just being different to.
Yeah.
Correct.
everyone.
And it felt like I didn't embrace it. So I was going through all the motions, but because I had no strong conviction to actually have that as it didn't feel like my authentic self doing it. It was because I was obliging those around me to do that. And I feel like as I grew up, that was something that I found I struggled even more with, because my dad, he was addicted to smoking, and he ran a business. He held down 3 jobs while I was growing up to make ends meet in our house. And holding those 3 jobs down, it was just something that was an outlet for him with smoking. And some of the elders from that religion spoke with him and encouraged him to stop. And it was something that he just couldn't do. And we ended up finding out that Dad was hiding his addiction and throwing his cigarette butts out of the bathroom window and such, and just things that I can't imagine he would have felt really comfortable with that either, because it would have been a massive stronghold in his life. As a child, I don't know the support that he had around him to be able to encourage him to stop. All I do know as I grew up was that he got disfellowshipped, which was a shunning or complete isolation from the church, including members of our family.
So
Weren't
that meant
permitted
you
to
couldn't
speak to
go
him.
to the church, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So it was my dad and his kids couldn't attend church. So we left the church, and it was something that I always have had a strong faith, always believed in God. And my auntie actually gave me a crucifix for my 13th birthday that I kept. And because it was something that I was never allowed to look at or use, a crucifix isn't something in the religion that's a permitted symbol. The crucifix for me felt like it was almost illegal to have, but it brought me so much comfort. And one of the things I remember growing up with in my bedroom was always feeling that I always felt there was a darkness when I'd go to sleep at nighttime. I used to suffer a lot of night terrors and call out in the night. My mum and dad would come in and check on us. And there was always a feeling I'd get hot and sweaty and feel like I couldn't scream out to call for them to come to me. And that the crucifix that my auntie gave me was something that I really felt comforted by. So I always felt like that there was something about it that was something that I really needed in my life. And I had that, and I feel like there was a journey that started in me from really little, with wanting to have a faith, trusting in God, but then not having the people around me that encouraged me to outwork that in the way that I have now. And it was only when I got to this stage of being a mum myself, when I was 23, I had my daughter, and my daughter was 18 months old, and I feel like one of the things that happened when I gave birth to her, my daughter Emma, I had postnatal depression within 24 hours. The pediatricians came to sign us out of the hospital to say we were good to go, and I felt completely choked and nauseous and overwhelmed that I wasn't good enough to walk out of the hospital, that I wasn't going to be permitted to walk out of the hospital with this baby, this brand new beautiful girl. And I was so conflicted in who I was and what I had to bring to the table to be able to look after her. And I remember going home, and it was awful because my mom-in-law had moved in to come and help me look after my daughter. My mum was with us as well, and nobody could touch her. I was so fearful that something was going to happen to her that I had to hold her all the time. I was sleep deprived, had postnatal depression, and fast forward a little bit, we had actually a Christian friend of my mum's, an elderly gentleman, Jeff, who had, he was undergoing dialysis. We didn't know him for a very long time, invited us on an Alpha course. And I didn't know what that was. I just loved spending time with Jeff. He had a joyful spirit, embraced us. He was in his 60s, and I was a young mum. Like, who was I in his life for him to spend any time with us? Playing board games, having pizza nights on a Friday, just hanging out with us and loving on me as a new mum as well with my family. Invited us on an Alpha course, and at the time my husband said, with respect, I'm not into the Jesus Bible stuff, so we all sat there just unsure what was going to happen. And then Jeff just very politely said, well, there's going to be, when we meet up on the evening, you can bring Emma and we have dessert. So my husband was like, there's dessert every week. Okay, well, count us in. So then I thought, later on in life, I was like, Lord, you just knew his love language. You knew dessert was going to be the ticket.
And you didn't pick ice cream earlier.
I know, but it
crazy.
wasn't my love language.
Yeah.
And I got invited to an Alpha course, and we watched, I was loved by lots of people, and I didn't realize one night was a massive encounter. We watched the Passion of the Christ DVD, and I'd never even heard of what this was before. We started finding out questions. We were asking each other about what Christianity was, what church was, what it looked like to attend church, what youth was, a whole bunch of things. And then we watched this movie. And during the film, there's a moment where Jesus is carrying the crucifix and he stumbles and trips. And they run to get his mom. And because the crowds are all covering the street, she can't get to him. And they flash to when he's, I think, about 3 in the film. He falls down and she picks him up and puts him on her knee, dusts him off and gives him a hug. And in that moment, my whole vision, sound and everything just froze. Time just froze for me. And I had this vision of God showing me, it's like those little projectors that you can flick the little cartridge around. It's a very old 80s toy, and you see all these pictures. As that happened, I had these Polaroids come across of when I was a little girl. I was born the eldest child. I was born the firstborn cousin. So I've been the oldest cousin. I babysat my cousins, my twin baby girl cousins, my cousin Warwick, Carolee, always was the oldest cousin. And I was getting all these affirmations in that moment. And it happened in seconds, but for me it felt like I was with God for ages while I was getting all this affirmation of who I was and who he created me to be. That I was the oldest cousin, I was responsible, I was worthy. I'd been raised to be the oldest sister for a reason. I had a plan and a purpose for my life. That Emma was born to me intentionally because she was to be raised by me. She was matched to me. God wanted me to be her mom. And it was so powerful to see all of this and all these strongholds come crashing down where I felt like I'd been in a chokehold all my life from the enemy saying that I wasn't worthy, that I was conflicted. Who was I? I was an enemy to the faith because I was trying to be someone that I actually truly wasn't. My identity was completely messed up until that moment. And then I saw all of this stuff come into fruition, that I was a good friend, that I was able and more than capable of looking after and raising my daughter to be the best version of herself that she could be. And no one else could do the job but me. And depression lifted. I started the creche ministry at the church because I went home that night, go back a step, went home that evening and had a Gideon Bible that they'd given us on the Alpha course and just said the prayer of my own accord in the back of it. And I just said, Lord, I know who you are. I want a relationship with you. I know that when I step into the space and ask you to be the Lord and Savior of my life, that I can be restored. I don't have to carry this guilt. I don't have to carry depression. I can know that I'm worthy and I'm loved and that I have a place to belong and I can have this. And I choose to have you as my Lord and Savior. And I lay down, pulled my doona cover over me. In South Africa, we call it a duvet. And it felt like when someone jumps on top of you in a bed and then their whole body weight pushes you down, and then you just get like a big burrito cuddle.
Yeah.
That's what happened, except no one else was in the room. Just me, my doona, and then I went into a deep sleep. And I went to the Alpha course the next session and spoke to one of the leaders that were there and told them that I'd said the prayer, and suddenly everybody got super excited and I was a bit freaked out. I was like, what did I do? They said, you just gave your life to Christ. Like, this is a big deal. What you've just done is massive. This is life-changing. This is like an eternal decision. And for me, I was quite excited. I was like, okay, well, tell me more. Like, what do I need to do now? What's the next step? And they invited us to church, and we stepped into our first church, which was Dorchester Family Church in the UK. And we stayed in that church until we came to Australia. We raised our kids in it, and that's where I stepped into a ministry of starting up the creche that was there. Not being fearful about stepping into a space that enabled other mothers to bring their kids to a space to be able to be loved on, find out who they were in Christ as well, that God intentionally chose them to be the parents of their kids, and just affirming people the way that I feel like God had affirmed me in that moment.
That's
really
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like you've grown up living a counterculture life.
I would
as opposed
definitely
to-
say so.
But in a
As
way
opposed
where
to-
it didn't feel like good to live counterculture, it didn't feel right
Yeah.
at the time. Yeah.
Initially, and I've only grown to understand as I've got older, that I didn't understand that I was born with a pioneering spirit, a spirit that was open to change. I'm not fearful of change. We moved our whole family across from the UK to Australia, and initially had no idea where we were going to be working. We didn't know where we were going to live, and we got a lot of questions from people asking us how we could get our visas and work so hard for something. We'd never even stepped foot on Aussie soil before we knew without a shadow of a doubt that this is where we needed to be. And it's something people just didn't understand. And for us, it wasn't something we felt fearful of, because for every answer we didn't have, we were okay that God did. And living even with Christian friends and Christian mentors and such, the questions we got bombarded with wanting to know what all the intricacies were to our immigration story, we didn't have answers for people. We just knew we needed to be here, and we were actually 100% okay to figure it out along the way. We had a lot of people thinking that this countercultural sort of thinking was reckless, that we were taking 3 children out of a stable environment, that we knew where we were. We had 2 jobs. We were stable in our earnings. We were in the job that I'd been wanting to work at for a really long time. The story I told you about the school that I really wanted to work at, that I managed to get a job at when I had the accident. Was something that had been a goal of mine. And I got that just to feel God call us to come over to Australia. So that was very challenging, because I would even say we lost some friends because of it. Not understanding how we could be reckless, I guess, and just coming over. But God had it all sorted. We had our jobs before we actually left the UK, just through a whole series of miraculous events that happened over here in Australia.
So it's nearly like when you grew up, it kind of felt wrong to live counterculturally.
Yeah.
But like obviously then moving away and following God's voice and that kind of thing as you've grown up and living now,
Yeah.
it's nearly like you're trying to live counterculture and against the world, and even when people are telling you to do otherwise.
But from a
Absolutely.
place of love as well. It seems like there was a lot of fear, and not in a good way of like, oh, I've got to impress my parents. Oh, I can't, or an exclusion as well. I can't do this because I've got to be obliging to my religion, to my parents, and I've got to honor them. And so it's kind of like back there, you were living counterculturally, but from a place of fear, whereas living counterculturally from a place of love, of, no, this is what the world says.
Yeah.
But I know in my heart that doesn't sit well with my morals. That doesn't sit right. What does the Bible say about it? That's
Correct.
That's not okay. So does the Bible suggest that we should be living counterculturally, and if so, in what way? Like,
I would probably think so. One of the ways that's a really good question. So one of the things that I started off with when I became a mum was seeking out Christian parenting resources, because I don't feel like I grew up with a biblical literacy as well as literacy of raising children in a Christian environment. Yeah. I didn't have that. There isn't a lineage I came from that I could tap into to be able to go, this is what I know and that has been passed down. So Christian parenting resources, one of my most tattered, dog-eared resources that is at my bedside table right now is The Power of a Praying Parent by Stormy O'Martian. And it's a book, it's a purple coloured book. I've had 3 to 4 copies of it because I annotate, draw in it, and I've used it for all 20 years of raising Emma. And then my other 2 children, Tyler and Abigail. And Abby's turning 16, Tyler 18. And I've used that the whole life. So one of the things that I didn't have, so counterculturally, I've lived as an adult because I didn't have that. Praying parents. Yeah. Having a parent that's prayed for example, my spouse. I've prayed for my children's spouses since the day that were born. We have always, even when they were little, prayed that, Lord, wherever Emma and Abigail's husbands and Tyler's wife is growing up in the world, we pray that they're growing up in a space where they are loved and affirmed and they know who you are, that they have the opportunity to hear the gospel and grow up in the faith, etc., and keep them safe wherever they are, etc. And when they finally meet with Emma, Tyler, or Abigail, that they would know without a shadow of a doubt that you have them set aside for each other and that union is in you. And we've never stopped praying that. And I think that is something that is a completely different way of parenting than I know of, or that I've done courses with my husband at our previous church where we've led families through a season, teaching them how to do that. And I think that's very countercultural.
Well, you are my idol in that I've grown up not in a Christian environment. So I've never had a parent. I love my parents. They've done an incredible job of raising me. But I've never had a parent pray for me. I've never grown up hearing the gospel. So hearing it in a place like school is where I was first exposed to it, which has obviously, you being one of the teachers at my school, being able to have those role models that are able to pray over you in a motherly way and see that you didn't grow up in a Christian environment. So
not at all.
Being able to see that you can still turn out good. Yeah. Because that's something that I know I battle with like a lot. Am I, as a mother, going to be able to raise my kids Christian if I wasn't raised as a Christian? I'm the one starting this sort of thing. And so it's been something lately that I've really had on my heart, and just hearing your story is really a big thing for me, because it's just, yes, I can do this, and it is possible. It just means that I have to really want it and really try and really, which is, again, counterculturally, because today's day you kind of, no, everything's handed to you on a silver platter. Like, you don't really see the hard work and effort that previous generations have had to go through. And I think that we take a lot for granted. And I think that knowing that things are going to be okay as long as God is by your side is a massive thing. And especially stepping into young adulthood, when you're finding the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, starting a family with them, it's a big thing to have God as at the center of that. Yeah. Because then you're equally yoked, and your kids are going to be it's going to be such a nucleus family, and just seeing your family and that it is possible is such an inspiration to me. And I love that.
You will. I think that one of the things is that trusting God to fill the gaps as well. Yeah. Like, you may not have grown up in a Christian home to be able to feel confident yet that you'll be able to do that and set that precedence and start that whole new tapestry of life for your family. But I think that with even the tiniest, we talk about obviously faith being like mustard seed, the tiniest amount of faith, and God will meet you exactly at that space where you're at, and he takes that momentum forward. You just need to have an open heart and be willing
100%.
and align yourself with the people around you. I find that the most valuable thing is aligning yourself with people around you to shape up what you are wanting to go. And we had a service. Our message on Sunday at church was the vine that you're attached to is the fruit that you're going to bear. So when you attaching really yourself to the right vine is the most important thing. And that for us, we know that that's Christ. That's God. God is that. And you do that, and then you align yourself with people around you that are all in pursuit of the same thing. I tend to seek wiser counsel. So I tend to seek friends that are older than me, wiser than me, and align myself with them. So I've always had this rule. The number of people that will have my back as I'm an adult will fit onto one hand, but often don't fill every one of my 5 fingers. Those are the number of people that I allow to speak into my life. They're the people that I fully trust to have my back, but that have my best interest at heart, no matter how radically candid they have to be in their conversations with me. Whether that's to realign me, whether that's to challenge me, whether that's to encourage me, or just to let me know that I can be there, or just to be there. And I think for you, Lexi, you are the fact that you've got that desire, aligning yourself with people. God will fill the gap. One of the things that I didn't, even when I'd had my 3 children, something that I did that was very different as well, I decided to do my degree after I'd had Abby. And she had actually just finished breastfeeding. She was a tiny bub. And I'd been a stay-at-home mum for all of them, all the children, until I'd fed Abby. And then I woke up with this burning desire to go and finish my degree. I wanted to go back and study because I dropped out of uni first time. And I got this prompting to go to college and find out what that was going to look like in the UK. I had to go and do my a bridging course for a year and do some subjects. And it turned out that they didn't have art or sport, all the things I was good at. They only had sciences. And that was a joke because I was actually blonde in school, and I was known as sometimes an airhead with the way that I did things. I wasn't good at math initially, I thought, etc. And they only had science and maths teachers at the college that had the bridging course. And I went and did that. I signed up for it, and I was like, well, if that's what I've got and they don't have any art or humanities teachers at that time to do the bridging course in that way, the lady at the enrollments office just said, love, it's very accessible. It's designed to be a bridging course to get you into uni. So it really doesn't matter which subject you do. If you want to do chemistry and biology and maths, go for it. You'll be able to figure out what you want to do after. So I did that, and I ended up, long story short, got distinctions in it, and ended up withdrawing my applications for primary education, and actually ended up doing a science degree at the University of Exeter in the UK. But where my story's going is that I had 3 young babies. Abby was just finished feeding, like months old. And then I had Tyler and Emma. And I had to drive. The university of choice that I got to was an hour and a half away from home. So I had to drive an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back, 5 days a week. So that's 15 hours of travel. And what I did that was very different was I would strap in the seatbelt in the passenger seat, and I'd invite Jesus in. I'd put my bag on the footwell, and I'd be like, I need you. And that, my most intimate times with God was that journey for the 3.5 years that I did all that commuting back and forth, was with him in the car. And I'd get promptings like, pick up the textbook at the front door as I was leaving. And this audible voice would say, pick it up. And I'd look around and be like,
actually, an audible voice?
Yes.
Yeah, right, cool.
Yes, like, book. And I'd look
we've
down.
Been speaking about ways that God can kind of talk to us in this podcast, and whether many ways, but audible, that's one way.
That's one way.
Yeah.
The visions is another way that I get. I communicate with God with very clear visions at different times, and this was the book. And I'd turn around and look, if it was a biochemistry book, and be arguing, going, it's not on my timetable. That's not my timetable today. The book, pick up the book, and I'd get frustrated, like, I don't need that book right now. But I'd pick it up, be obedient, put it in the car, get to uni, and because I was tired and because I'm juggling a whole heap of things and being a mum to 3 kids and a wife to Paul, get to uni to find out I had like a workshop on biochem. There was a prac that I had to do, and I'm now prepared because I've brought my correct resources with me, was when I started trusting that God was filling every gap that I had. These spiritual moms, as in like God organized all these women to come in the life of my children to help me raise my kids when I was that far away. My husband's a disability support worker doing shifts and work, and my kids would forget their swimmers, or I would forget their swimmers because they were little, putting it in their bag. And when I got home of an evening, there'd be a little note to say, Dear Tracey, just letting you know that we managed to get Lorna, for example. Lorna's mum dropped off a spare pair of swimmers for Abby so she could do swimming today, or Emma could do swimming today. And all these people just came into our life, and that was God filling in the gap wherever. And you'll find that when you become a mum, it's something you do not have to fear. The moment that you open up and you're ready to lead counterculturally in your home and have your children raised in a Christian household, God will give you all of the resources, the people that you need to have around you. Plant yourself in a God-rich environment in your church, making sure that you diligently do that, and doors will swing wide open with all the things you need to make that happen.
Would you say that even applies like outside of a marriage, and like, because obviously like me being young ad now moving out of school as a Christian, I can find it, you know, at times the world's telling me to do different things to what I want to do. I'd say that's when I think of counterculture, I sometimes think of that. Would that be your advice, like God's divine, tap into that, and he'll help us through that kind of thing and fill in the gaps?
100%.
Yeah.
I think that it's cross-generational. It is whether you're single, whether you're a married couple, it doesn't matter what age you're at. Obviously, when you're a child, as a parent, we get to have some say in the people that you're going to hang around with. So for myself personally, with my kids, I've always, up until the age where they start wanting to choose their own friends, and becoming more determined on who your social group's going to be, I did control what that looked like. The kids that my children were exposed to, where they got to go and hang out. The movies even that they got to go and watch, if friends invited them out to a movie, I'd ask what it was. If it didn't align, correct.
Which is very countercultural, because a lot of parents are like, oh yeah, whatever, it's fine. Without
you don't even realise it, but like
you don't.
You're getting protected.
And it's little by little bit, like they'll put one thing in a movie and then the next thing, and before you know it, you're watching some ridiculous thing, and you're like, when did I let my kid get to this part? Like I've been seeing my sister, she's 13, some of the things she's watching with me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be terrified at 13, but she's like, this isn't even scary. It's just one of those things of like so against the, like, just having to be against that culture of, no, I'll let your kids watch whatever, or let your kids do whatever sort of thing. Just raising them in that.
I have asked my kids often. It's been a case of, another thing is family dinners. It's non-negotiable. You're home for family dinner and you're sitting around the table. We don't eat in our bedrooms. You don't choose to just rock up when you want and don't tell me you're not going to be there for dinner. There's a certain precedence that's set and the expectations are there. And having family dinners is important for us to be able to have those kinds of things and conversations and chats around the dinner table and such. Those kinds of things I think are... that's where your parents help shape and mold that. But I think there comes a point as well for you to determine what that's going to look like for yourself as a young man. You do start getting into a space where that becomes your normal, and you'll get a discernment when you get invited by the world to step into something that's countercultural to that. And then it comes to a decision. Sometimes it's exciting and enticing though, that you want to try something, you want to do something different. But I think there's a safety in knowing that you have that discernment and you can always become like the world is calling you to be. Always. But you can't come back from that to say, actually, this is where I've stayed. Not that you can't come back from it, that you can't be saved or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is always the option for temptation to trial and taste or do different things. But to maintain that integrity and be able to say that's actually just not quite for me, there's so much power and respect in having that kind of stance. And you have got a discernment inside of you. And when you start attuning to that and being able to step into that space of going, I know what is good for me and what isn't, that's something that only empowers you. It doesn't disempower you. Doesn't make you less of a person for doing that. And when you become confident in knowing that, I think it helps shape that more. And then you encourage other people to do the same thing.
I guess that's the whole story of, the Bible. You look at the disciples, you look at Paul, you look at everyone there. The world was telling them to do other things, whether it be like those guys called the Pharisees that were living differently, or the world saying, turn away from Jesus, don't do that. Even when they were at a point where like Paul's getting thrown in prison, we read in Acts, he was still living and looking to Christ, to that vine you were talking about before. And I guess, I remember there's this one verse, I'm pretty sure in Acts, where like he literally, I think, gets beaten for his faith. Like it's really full on. But I remember reading it, I thought it was so weird. He walked out of it and rejoiced because he was doing it in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's 100% what you're getting at, eh? Like if we look to Christ, we might struggle. You had a lot of difficulties I'm seeing along the way. But in the end, it was so worth it because, you're working for a greater prize to see Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you already see him every day. But,
there are lots of opportunities to communicate with God as well. I feel like when I've opened up and when you seek him, he meets you.
Yeah, cool.
Tenfold. You'll have that opportunity to have that. And I think with the kids, I was sharing that when I've spoken to the kids, I've asked them many times, what would they change? About little things. What kind of things, traditions would they carry on with? What kind of things do they feel like they've missed out on stuff because of the way that they've been parented or the household they've been in? And emphatically not. That they love the family dinners. They love, they can't imagine not having grown up in the church.
Yeah.
To be able to have the mentors they've had that have shaped their lives, the opportunities that, so we've kept a blog of, we watched a movie called War Room. And in the movie, there was, we learnt about the importance of keeping records of blessings, keeping records of miracles, keeping records of the moments tangible moments that God has been in your life, the conversations you've had with God, where you've heard his audible voice, where you've seen visions, where you've had conversations with the Lord, and documenting those. And so one of the things we did when we started immigrating over to Australia is we started a blog. And I documented that for, I think it lasted for about 2.5, 3 years. I had this compulsion to document and put things down as a testimony of the goodness of God in all aspects of immigrating country with 3 children, moving across to a place you've never been before. And that's one thing that we've kept as a testimony to the children, to see how important it is to keep records of things like that. And when the kids have seen those blessings and you encourage each other with the blessings that we have, then I think that it becomes something that you can pass on to any age. Encourage kids to keep a record of the blessings.
Definitely take that one on board.
Yeah.
Well, it's really, really cool hearing obviously your insights on living counterculturally, which obviously is going against the grain of the world, and the world might put their identity in flesh things, worldly things like obviously sex, drugs, alcohol, all that sort of thing. And us as Christians is going against that grain, being counterculture and living the way that God wants us to live. That's what we're called to do. So really cool to hear your story and everything, Tracey. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. It was incredible having you, Tracey, again, wherever you're joining from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. It was great to have you. If you want to leave, obviously, a couple of comments, or just we want to engage with you and create a community with this podcast. So just leave comments. We'll respond to them as much as we can. We'll take anything on board that you give us, any feedback, any would you rathers even that you want to give us. Follow us on @The Cross Discussion on Instagram. We post a lot of the behind the scenes there, so just check that out. Again, leave comments. We'll engage with you as much as we can. So join us next Tuesday morning where we've got Beth and Ty joining us to chat about life as just married. So just got married last year, which is really, really cool.
That's cool.
I'm so excited to have a chat to them. They're 2 of my best friends. So
No.
yeah. Really cool to have a chat with them. But for now, let the discussion begin.